Well, I got my notes, check. Sunglasses, check. Hat, check. Pepsi, check. Thick skin, check. Let's go. Hey, welcome to Golden Blue Dude, everybody. If you're a college football fan, might as well hit the like and subscribe button because that's all we do over here. Go check out our Patreon page. We call our Patreons the shot callers because that's exactly what they do around here. And when the regular season gets here, our Patreons will get to decide which game we'll live stream, and you'll get to watch with Golden Blue Dude. And the score prediction contest will be coming back. Every week I pick out a game and my Patreons guess the score, and whoever comes closest to the score wins $20 every single week, and you can win as many times as you want. The higher the Patreon, the more guesses you get per week. Right when you think conference realignment news is starting to die down, maybe not all the way, but just starting to, it's not. The flame builds up again, and it's all because of Notre Dame. We already know that the Big Ten is most definitely interested in Notre Dame. That was one of the reasons why they brought in USC and UCLA. Remember, USC is a rival of Notre Dame that they play every single year. And from what I was hearing, the Big Ten was willing to accept Stanford if it meant getting in Notre Dame. Well, from what I'm hearing from multiple sources, Notre Dame has actually rejected the Big Ten's offer. Honestly, I'm going to be honest about this one, guys. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. The Big Ten is offering big mega bucks to Notre Dame. And from what I'm hearing, Notre Dame was the only school that added any type of value to the Big Ten TV deal. So not only would they be getting what's offered in front of them, but actually that number could be bigger because of Notre Dame's value. And Notre Dame is rejecting that. So the question now is, do they expand anyway and grab, an Oregon and a Washington, bring them into the Big Ten, and just pay out a little bit less to everybody else? I don't know the answer to that. But that might be a problem for UCLA and USC in the fact that they might be on an island in the Big Ten. No more partners, no more buddies coming with them, all because of Notre Dame. But there is still that option of the Big Ten grabbing Oregon and Washington and just paying out less to the other members, to all members in the Big Ten. But I don't know if the Big Ten is going to do that or if they're just going to stay pat at 16 teams. I don't know. So with Notre Dame rejecting, from what I'm hearing, the Big Ten's offer, does that mean that Notre Dame is choosing the ACC? Because remember, I've been saying for the past 10, 11 months that Notre Dame and West Virginia have been in talks with the ACC and that they were going to join together in the ACC. And then about a month or two ago, I was hearing from Notre Dame fans and Notre Dame message boards and Twitter and everywhere, basically, that Notre Dame was seriously thinking about joining the ACC full-time in football by 2025, which is when their NBC TV contract will be up, which they'll probably renegotiate that and get more money from NBC and be able to keep that all to themselves, but then be added to the ACC and get a piece of that pie as well. I kind of misunderstood the contract because I know that Notre Dame joining the ACC is in the contract. If they join any conference before 2036, it has to be the ACC. That is in their contract. But from when I understood it, that meant that if they do join the ACC, then it's already in the contract and they can't renegotiate that TV deal because it's already in the contract. That's actually not the case. If Notre Dame joins the ACC full-time, that's going to add value to the TV deal, and the ACC actually will have leverage to renegotiate that TV deal. But they're also thinking about bringing in West Virginia with Notre Dame. That's what I've been hearing from very reliable sources for the past 10 to 11 months. Now, I kind of backed off from that over the past week because, well, USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten. And then I heard that they're reaching out to Notre Dame, and that was one of the reasons why they brought in USC and UCLA. So it's like, well, if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten, West Virginia isn't going to the ACC by themselves. That's just not going to happen, especially, if Notre Dame joins the Big Ten, the ACC would get picked apart. And because of the rumors that the Big Ten reached out to Notre Dame and Notre Dame was potentially interested, ACC teams began talking to the SEC. I was hearing it was Clemson, Florida State, Virginia, and North Carolina. But now I'm hearing if Notre Dame chooses the ACC, then those ACC schools will stay in the ACC. This is a point that I've been trying to drive to everybody. The ACC teams do like being in the ACC. Make no mistake about that. They just don't like the money that they're making. They don't like watching the SEC and the Big Ten making big time bucks while they're stuck in the ACC making chump change. So if the ACC can renegotiate that TV deal and make them more money enough to where it's at least competitive with the SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to stay because they actually do like the ACC. And with Notre Dame potentially turning down the Big Ten, which is what I'm hearing from multiple sources, that means Notre Dame's probably thinking about joining the ACC full-time in football, which is what I was hearing from Notre Dame fans a month ago and what I've been told this whole time. But, you know, this is a fluid situation. So you don't know if things are going to change the minds of certain parties if they didn't see this choice happening and didn't foresee the future, and then things change, because this is a domino thing. One domino falls down and it knocks down the rest. So it could change directions. But apparently Notre Dame is not interested in the Big Ten's offer, and they are going to join the ACC by 2025, and that will give them the power of being able to renegotiate that terrible TV deal. And the ACC does want to bring in West Virginia and Notre Dame. You know, you can give me all the arguments about West Virginia all you want, but West Virginia does in fact bring value to the ACC. They are the #1 remaining fan base in the new Big 12 and tied at #1 in revenue producing programs. So they would bring the eyeballs of their fans and the revenue making machine that is West Virginia, and it would tap into the markets that are already into the ACC. Like Syracuse, they're the #1 fan base, not including Notre Dame, but their fans aren't interested in Syracuse. You could tap into that because Syracuse fans are most definitely interested when Syracuse plays West Virginia. Same with Pitt fans. Have you ever watched the Pitt game at home for the Pitt Panthers? They can't fill that football stadium. But watch the Backyard Brawl this year. I guarantee you it's going to be maxed out. It's going to be overflowing. Why? Because Pitt fans love to watch them play West Virginia. Same thing with Louisville. Same thing with Boston College. I mean, the city of Boston has no interest in Boston College. But when they play West Virginia, they're actually interested in that. So at least that's revenue for one game every year if they get to play West Virginia every year. And then, of course, there's Virginia Tech. That's a big-time moneymaker draw. And then Miami. And then all the other schools that are already in the ACC. Better believe they will strike up a rivalry with West Virginia. So this all hinges on Notre Dame. And it looks like Notre Dame is saying no to the Big Ten and is actually going to join the ACC. Honestly, that blows my mind. And then that domino leads to my next point. And that's the Big 12 talking to not 4, but 6 Pac-12 teams. Meaning that the Big Ten actually does not want to keep expanding and have smaller payouts to all the other schools. So that means that the Big 12, not only are they going to bring in Utah, Colorado, Arizona State, but they're also talking to Oregon and Washington. So you could have 6 teams out of the Pac-12 join the Big 12, and it's all because of Notre Dame. Notre Dame was the big prize for the Big Ten. They would have brought in Stanford. They would have brought in Navy. They would have brought in whoever Notre Dame wanted them to bring in if it meant getting Notre Dame. But it looks like that's just not going to happen. And now the Big 12 is interested in 6 teams. I haven't confirmed that the other 2 teams are Oregon and Washington, but that's my best guess, assuming that the Big 10 is not expanding anymore because they didn't get Notre Dame and they don't want to pay out less to all their schools. So my best guess would be Oregon and Washington, but that's just a guess. But that would be big for the Big 12 as well. So a lot of things were up in the air, and it all hinged on Notre Dame. And it looks like Notre Dame is saying, no thanks, but no thanks, Big Ten, but we're going to stick with the ACC. Just their mere interest in the Big Ten caused ACC schools to talk to the SEC. Now that it looks like Notre Dame is saying no, they might actually back off those talks and stay in the ACC and see what happens with that renegotiated TV deal. Man, it has been a long 4 or 5 days. This has been crazy. And the biggest domino was USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. And then on top of that, the Big Ten announcing they are interested in Notre Dame. And they'll do anything within their power to bring in Notre Dame. But it looks like it's just not going to work. Y'all let me know in the comment section what you think about this situation. Are you surprised that Notre Dame is turning down the Big Ten? I'm going to be honest. I am surprised. So this changes a lot of things. We'll see what dominoes fall over in the future. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on my next show.